Well, welcome back to the Leg Up, your weekly thoroughbred preview podcast, and I'm joined in studio once again by Steve Hunt. Someone's missing.
There is, yeah, Thaddeus Taylor on leave for a couple of weeks. You got to hold the thought.
So I guess this reminds me of Two and a Half Men when when they had a sort of a replacement, one left, Charlie Sheen, and now you get Ashton Kutcher.
Okay.
Yeah?
You keep telling yourself that.
All right. Well, let's have a look at back at last week. And we're up at Ruakaka and Awapuni, and we saw a very impressive 3-year-old in Sacred Satono up north, and Mustang Valley did the business down at Awapuni.
Yeah, look, there are two good meetings, contrasting meetings. Awapuni obviously on a heavy deck, and Ruakaka was on a good 4 come race 1, so that was a bit of an unknown in terms of what we've had in the last 2 to 3 months. But Satono, or Sacred Satono, just keeps producing the goods as a 3-year-old, always showed ability as a juvenile, just had to strengthen up, and he's working back from a 2,000 Guineas, and he's now slid into that second line at $8 on the back of winning last Saturday against a tidy 3-year-old. I wouldn't say it's A-grade 3-year-old form in behind Sacred Satono, but he may be A-grade himself. So he's progressing very nicely towards Riccarton. And Mustang Valley, look, she was awesome in the metric mile. She put that Group 3 away in arrogant fashion, swooped them, didn't have a cart into the race, so she had to do the donkey work to put herself into a winning position at the top of the straight, and it was basically game over from the 400 onwards. And like I mentioned, it was a fairly arrogant win, and now she puts herself in commission to tomorrow's Group 1 assignment. We'll touch on her in more depth in terms of form lines, etc. later on the show, but I just want to go on the sudden rise of Mustang Valley. You go back 5 weeks ago, she was contesting 65 grade at Te Rapa and comfortably beaten that day. Post that, she's won 75 level at Hastings on day 1 of the carnival, and then obviously the Group 3 last Saturday. I can't recall a horse 5 weeks out at 65 grade coming into a weight for age in the space of that time, being hard in that second line of betting, and has made that rapid progression in a short time frame. I just can't recall one in my time, Mustang Valley. And look, there's been horses that obviously step up in terms of open handicap and age grade Group 1, but when it comes to weight for age Group 1 level, I just can't recall a horse that's made such a rapid leap in Mustang Valley. And yes, the race has fallen away with Imperatriz and a couple of others that have had injuries, etc. over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but look, in July, she was $61 to take out the Arrowfield Stud Stakes. I think she closed at roughly around that $4 mark in futures betting, so there's some really nice tickets. High bet count around Mustang Valley. We had a $60 bet at 61s, and that was taken in July. So one punter had great belief around Mustang Valley. And then also we've had a $300 bet and a $150 bet at 8s around about this time last week on Mustang Valley. So there's a lot of people with some nice tickets on her come tomorrow afternoon.
Sticking with Mustang Valley, didn't you say that her figures rated very impressively in that last race on Tarzino Day against the Group 1 Tarzino?
Yeah, just on raw figures, you got a real identical kind of mirror up between the two races because they're side-by-side races, I think from memory, 8 or 9 or 9 and 10. It was the last 2 on the day on Tarzino Day. And just on raw figures, she rated 2.2 lengths above the Tarzino. Now, the Tarzino rated poorly for a weight for age Group 1, so there was a few horses there like the likes of Imperatriz, La Creek, on their 3-year-old form regressed significantly. So I think she has to rely on La Creek, again, producing a similar figure to what she produced on day 1, La Creek. But if La Creek goes back to her 3-year-old figures, then clearly she's the horse to beat. But we'll touch on that in the next hour or so.
Yeah, I see one runner you haven't mentioned from last week, Butler.
Yeah, look, it was an honest performance. I didn't think he was ever going to put that field away. I just had that gut feeling that it was just going to be a working horse or workingsman kind of performance, and it was that. He started very short. I think opened $2.50 from memory and closed at $1.60, $1.70 possibly late.
He definitely did open at $2.50.
You'd know. So look, the punter's got the bickies there. Again, I think he's ideally suited at 1,200 metres. Whether he goes to 7 furlongs this campaign, if he does, I think he's a potential lay. Just from what I've seen. But look, he was strong enough at 1,200. Whether he goes next on a rain-affected going, he's going to be hard to beat.
And I think he was one of our boosted runners on our poll last week. We'll have another poll later on in the show, so keep listening out for that. But we've got another friend up in Hamilton who joins us all the time, and last week there were a bunch of cats that took away the AFL Grand Final, and by the looks of BP, he's hoping another bunch of cats pick up the NRL Grand Final this weekend.
Yeah, good work there, Paulie. Yeah, I hope so. And look, they've given themselves a grand chance, haven't they? It's a Battle of the West, which is going to be a massive battle, isn't it? Parramatta Eels, they've gone the long way to get there, but Penrith did that last year as well. And, of course, were beaten by Penrith in game number 1 of the finals, but they were very good last week, weren't they, with their fight back in that second half, the Parramatta Eels. So they deserved grand finalists for sure. And I think it sets up to be an absolute beauty on Sunday night. Penrith looking to go back to back. Yeah, look, good chat there around what we saw last weekend, because there was some really good performances, and Mustang Valley was one of those horses that stood out from last weekend, and we'll touch on her with her ability to try and pull off a Group 1 coming up this weekend. And we'll touch on track conditions too at Hawke's Bay, because that is the other big talking point, and we knew that quite some time ago, lads, that this was going to be a wet track. Just what happens with the weather over the next 24 hours is going to be a key to what type of track condition we're playing on.
Now, we look back with Stephen just before, but I do remember you mentioning Ray Stevens last week, and the fact that a certain Mr. Sweeney wasn't going to be live on track. Looks like Ray Stevens missed Mr. Sweeney last week.
Yeah, I think so. You just missed that presence of the big man. Yeah, you might need to get back on track there, B. Sweeney, and just be there with the horse and just give us some comfort cuddles, potentially.
Right, we've talked about a couple of impressive performances last weekend. The regular time for Maiden of the Week, and I'm sure you've found another big performance by a runner last week, BP.
We have. Look, I was actually very torn between two runners for Maiden of the Week. I'll talk about our notable mention shortly, but let's get to our Maiden of the Week, because he's 81s into $14 in the 2,000 Guineas. I speak of Denby Road. My God, he's an enormous horse, but boy, doesn't he just oozes a little bit of something, doesn't he? Now, this was a win where they weren't expecting to be at the back end of the field when he was slow away. The high expectation was he'd sit close to speed like he was in his trials, but yeah, there's certainly something about him with the way that he gets over the ground for such a big horse. And now we'll just see what happens from here through to that next level. They're looking at Matamata, and then Sarton, and then hopefully to the 2,000 Guineas. That's the dream. But as we know, Brendan McCullum, he told us through the Cricket World Cup, dream big, New Zealand. And when you've got a 3-year-old at this time of the year, a lot of trainers and owners are dreaming big, and they're hoping that can be the case here with Denby Road. I thought in terms of education, it was almost the best thing that could happen there, with him getting back and working into the race like he did it, as opposed to maybe just sitting outside leader and getting the job done. He'll take a lot from that particular victory there out of Tauranga, and he looks to be a nice work in progress and a horse keen to follow.
Steve, how did that race rate overall in terms of figures?
You see there the class rating was just over 2 lengths below maiden class for 3-year-olds. You see there to the 600, last 600 now, it's all red, but remembering that's par based on open handicap figures. So not often do maidens flash in the green when it comes to the 600, last 600. But class rating, minus 2.1, I don't think that's a huge knock for Denby Road. And look, I spoke to George just after that race, and I wanted to get his thoughts around, because on pedigree, I was questioning possibly 1,600 metres or 2,000 Guineas, but look, he told me in a confident manner that this horse would get 2,000 metres tomorrow. And I took note on that. So they're quite comfortable with a horse that looks to get over 14, possibly next start, and then 16, and potentially 2,000 as an older horse, Denby Road. But on pedigree, being by Sham Express out of an aligned mare, you'd question it just on that base alone, 1,600. But look, he's very raw. He's obviously learning his ring craft still. I dead set agree with BP. I think missing the start was a blessing going forward. He would have learnt a lot out of that race. And as I mentioned, there's some nice tickets around him when it comes to the 2,000 Guineas. $81. The bet count last time I looked around Denby Road was 150 bet counts going through Denby Road, all at different prices. He now sits at $14, and George gave a little cheeky comment on the phone on Sunday afternoon to me and said, $14, you're crazy. What are you doing in Petone head office? As an owner would. But at $14, you look at that market, BP, and you look at the horses surrounding it currently, and I know we have a huge liability on the horse, so that has to be a major factor when reassessing his price on the back of what he did on Sunday. But a lot of those horses surrounding him are basically in the same profile as him. They're only one-win horses that are even yet to contest black type, where you look at the pointy end, Dynastic, Pierre, maybe standout horses that have been there, done that in terms of produced black type form as early 3-year-olds. But outside that, they're on a similar boat.
Yeah. And look, the way I look at futures markets is they're the horses you want to be speccing anyway, to be completely honest with you. You want to find the 40 to 61 to 81 chance that's going to, A, do that in a maiden race, and then you're sitting on a ticket to get to the race. Then you want just to get there. That's the point you want. You want to win the maiden race, you see the odds slash in, and then you're thinking, gee, here we go. It's into 14s now. We got 61s, 81s. So that's the thrill of that side of things. And then if you can get to the race, you've got a ticket in the lottery, don't you? And that's how I sort of view those futures markets. They're spec bets on horses that potentially could show something through track work and trials. We haven't seen it publicly. And look, you guys all know that. You'll see that so many horses that are nominated. And as I said, at this time of the year, everybody's got the pipe dream of winning a 1,000 guineas or 2,000 guineas. And look, we know that only one horse can win those particular races, but there are a lot of people that love to spec those horses at the big quotes. And look, I think I'm all for that. I think that's what the futures market set up for those two particular races. Look, Stella Splendide is another good one, Stephen. I mean, where's she? $8? She's won one race. It was a maiden race at Taupo, and she was around $41. So again, there's so many examples of something similar, and then it's about what happens in the next 6 weeks and when they're tackling those tougher races. Can I just quickly bring in my notable mention as well for Maiden of the Week? It has to be Perfect, the win at Cambridge. Did like that race. I think the race itself holds up, and I really like the second horse in that race in Pride of Prasia and a few others running on in that race. So mark that one down, race 4 from Cambridge this week.
Has to be Perfect. You
haven't done the figures yet on Wednesday, but we're going to get that in the next few months. BP's got his work cut out identifying one maiden of the week. Corberton was an impressive maiden winner also on the same meeting. So there's going to be all these horses that are coming out of the woodwork from trials, etc., that are on debut or lightly raced from a 2/3-year-old career last season, and they're going to be bouncing out and showing good figures and impressive on the eye in these maiden races. So a lot to look forward to.
Right, let's look ahead to this weekend, and it's the middle day of the Hawke's Bay Spring Carnival. But one thing that's on a lot of people's minds are the weather and track conditions, Steve.
We're seeing live picture shots here at the Bay, and look, it's not raining at present. Some graphics there coming up, basically. The rail out 4 metres now. The rail was in the true position on day one, so they've just shifted it out 4 metres. A couple of reasons. It might have been a bit cut up from day one along the rail, and they want to protect that ground, possibly going back to the true position in 2 weeks' time for the Livermore. But you see there currently a heavy 8. Now, it's been a heavy 8, I think, for the last 4 or 5 days with little rain throughout Hastings/Hawke's Bay. But the drama surrounding this meeting is the forecast for the next 48 hours. There's heavy rain forecasted today and also on race day. So I'm an educated guess, I reckon we're playing on a heavy 10, just looking at the forecast. It's not going to miss the track. As I mentioned, there's heavy rain forecasted. I want to hear BP's thoughts around the track, knowing that it's his home turf, the Bay, but I think we're going to be playing on a heavy 10. I don't think the fields will be decimated, purely because the majority of horses that accepted on Wednesday knew the forecast was going to play on a Friday and Saturday and potential rain and getting into that heavy 10 bracket. So look, there'll be the odd horse that comes out and wanted to ride their luck. Hopefully it would hold to a potential 8 pentometer reading, but I think the majority of the fields will hold up because of that, BP.
BP, you were looking for some sunshine last week. It doesn't look like you found any. I don't remember a spring where we've had this much consistent heavy rain, certainly not in Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Paul. I mean, this is hence why this carnival is here at this time of the year, because the expectation is that, I mean, this was the old Livermore day. I mean, you think about the Livermore/Celt Day. Could you think of any meetings on Celt Day that was running on a heavy 10? I mean, I'm racking my brain to try and think when we've had a wet track for that particular meeting. So this was the weekend that used to fall on, and gee, I can't think of too many that were on this particular day running on a heavy surface. So this is unknown territory, and it's territory that we've known for some time because they've had so much rain in the Hawke's Bay region. Richard Fenwick did say to me that the track is sitting around that 8th position currently with what we've had in terms of no rain, but the moisture in the water table is just so high that it's just not really going anywhere. It's a cold day there. You might have seen in the shots there, it's rather grey, it's gloomy, and you look at the forecast and there is rain all through it. So I guess one thing that will do that rain is it will loosen the track up, because with the having no rain, it would have got to that holding track condition. Rain on the next 24 to 48 hours will actually help try and loosen that surface up. I was trying to get an indication from Richard, is it going to be maybe wetter than day number one, but he just came back and said it's likely to be more loose, and then it's just down to how much rain is going to fall over the next 24, 48 hours.
Right, let's get into it, and we'll start with the Group 1, the Arrowfield Stud Plate, over the 1,600 metres, and this market dominated by 2 at the top there, Stephen.
Yeah, La Creek, look, she's been favourite for the majority of the week, ever since Imperatrice came out at the top of the week. La Creek, $2.40. Opened at $2.50, Paul. Now a $2.40 quote, got as short as $2.30, but she's clearly the best lead I can give to customers, even with the forecast as it stands right now around La Creek. She holds 4 times more money than the second elect in Mustang Valley at a $3.60 price, from an original price of $3.20. Springtide, look, there's 2 horses here they've identified. I think it is around the wet tracks. One of them being Springtide, 9 into $7.50, and the other one being number 9, Helena Baby, $21 into $14. Outside that, you've got Defibrillate, who's an intriguing runner first up for Opie Bosson, $8.50 out to $10. I will give a reason later on in the show why I think it has eased a touch to Defibrillate, but Opie Bosson, a betting profile, nevertheless $8.50 out to $10. Harlech got a size 26, just back into the original price of $21. White Noise has been well identified, the middle marketed $21 price, and Demonetisation. Open 26, got a size 41, Paul, just back into 26, and Vernon Me is best of the rest, 26 out to 41. So look, overall summary, after 48 hours of trading and final field betting, La Creek is clearly your best lead. Punters are prepared to back her, even with the track conditions that are likely come race day, $2.50 into $2.40.
Right, BP, is it as simple as the 2 mares at the top of the market, La Creek and Mustang Valley, or do we look elsewhere because of the track conditions?
Yeah, look, I think the track conditions make this a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, because we're in an unknown zone right now. We don't know how much rain is going to fall. There is projected to be a lot of rain to fall. So actually having a bet as we're live Friday morning right now, I think is a position where you just want to just sit back and wait for the race day. So that would be my first initial plan here about trying to bet, not just on this race, but I think on any other race throughout the 9 races there, is just wait to see the coverage from tomorrow morning when the team are on track, and Bevan Sweeney and Lee Thinnes, to get that true guide on what's happening with the track and how much rain has fallen. So that would be my first advice in betting into these markets. Look, La Creek, I want to back her. I want to be on her. I'm just waiting for her to get on a better surface. That was probably my first inkling around La Creek. She was a horse who didn't get favours in her first up run when beaten into 3rd position. And if the rain does come and loosen it up, I think that will be our help for her. I don't think many horses really want to be running on a holding track anyway, but she'd certainly be one where there'd be concerns if the rain didn't arrive and it was in that sort of holding type nature. But as I said, I'm just waiting for her to get on that better surface where she can sit outside leader and she can dominate and really bounce off a good surface. So I think to answer your question, Paul, it does bring other horses into the race, and I think Springtide has the formula of wet track credentials, ran well in the first day, and there's been a bit of a specking price at 9s into $7.50. So, and I wouldn't be surprised there's more trying to dig around. A Helena Baby, those type of horses could get chipped away at their price because of the track conditions.
Steve, I think we've got a speed map that the boys have put together up in Auckland, so can you take us through that?
There's a speed map there graphically, so you've got all horses starting there. The interesting fact around this speed map, it always is the Arrowfield Stud Stakes, is the starting point at Hastings over the 1,600 metres. There's roughly only a furlong to the first turn, so naturally you're going to get a bit of pressure for horses looking to find a spot. You see there the likes of Tiptronic, Masetto, even Helena Baby, who's got a fraction of a sticky gait, will look to go forward, and naturally that will generate speed/heat for the first 200 to 300 metres, because they'll be looking to get into that position, that top 2-3 position before the turn. So they're not having to cover extra ground. And then the flip side, the likes of Deerfield, La Creek, Craig Grills, La Creek, and also Vernon Me, who like to go forward also, have all drawn 1, 2, 3 in the barriers. They don't want to be shuffled back. If they slightly miss it, or even a little bit neutral out of the machine and not that aggressive, they could quite easily find themselves being shuffled back into their neutral position. So I think it's quite crucial for Craig Grills aboard La Creek that he's notable, or that he's noted that there is going to be a bit of speed, a bit of heat in the first 200 metres from horses that have drawn wideish, the likes of Tiptronic, Masetto, etc., even Helena Baby. And if he's not on his game for the first 200 metres, trying to hold that spot, trying to situate in the first 3 or 4, he could easily find himself in a position that he found himself on day 1, and that turned out quite nasty between the 5 and the 600 metre mark. So, look, Mustang Valley, naturally she's going to be back in the last third. I think ideally she'll want to cut into the race. I said at the top of the show, it was a very aggressive ride. She was probably the best horse last Saturday in the metric mile, and she got away with it. I don't think she'll be wanting to go out on a lonesome at about the 600-700 metre mark and find that position where she can strike at the top of the straight. I think she'll be looking to get her back a mid-race, somewhere where a horse wants to cut her into the race, get a bit of cover, and then she can let rip down the straight. But it is a fascinating starting point, as I mentioned, the 1,600 metres, purely because you've got 200 metres before the first turn. And naturally, I think there'll be fast early speed. The tempo might slacken mid-race, but because horses are looking to find a spot before they have to cover extra ground from a wide draw, and with those horses looking to hold a spot from inside draws, it's going to generate a little bit of speed and some fascinating racing in the first 2 or so 100 metres.
Could set it up for someone just sitting back behind the speed then, Steve?
Yeah, possibly, but again, wet track, I want to see how the track's playing. A negative in terms of the map might be just off speed along the rail and inside there, and that's where I mentioned La Creek doesn't want to find herself. So Craig, it's an awkward one for Craig because he doesn't want to burn too much petrol, but again, he doesn't want to be a little bit tardy out of the machine and be neutral where he finds himself back in the inner on the map. So I think he just needs to be that balancing act where he just happens to push the horse out, use enough energy to hold a position, and I think they'll be in the first 3 or 4. BP, where do you see the map in terms of Craig Grills assessing his chances around La Creek in the first 200 to 300 metres?
Yeah, look, you're spot on there with what can happen in that early rush heading into that first bend, and that's where it can get rather niggly for La Creek. We've seen when she's at her best is where she can take that forward position in running, and it's just down to how much hustling they need to do to be able to hold that spot, because we could see a little bit of pressure from Helena Baby, who's drawn in barrier number 6, a middle barrier draw. I'm sure they'll be wanting to try and find a spot with that horse just to be in a better position getting into that first bend, and then you've got Deerfield underneath, as you said, with La Creek. I think ideally with La Creek they want to be outside leader. That's a nice sweet spot for her, sitting outside the leader, and then Craig can sort of apply the pressure at the right time and just give her every opportunity. I think that in an ideal world, that's where things would like to sit for her. I'm not saying that she is going to get there, because I'm just unsure about what's going to come over. Look, Tiptronic, he's a horse that can set himself up on speed, and we've seen that through his trials. He looks very ready to go. A big race second up. He just hates a rain cloud, doesn't he? I mean, wet tracks are kryptonite for him in Tiptronic, but they just need to get things going in terms of being there for the Livermore in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, look, I've got a feeling that Helena Baby is going to be a runner that will be a crucial part to what happens going into that first bend with Deerfield, La Creek, and then, depending on what Tiptronic does, heading into that first bend from 4 wide out.
Right, did we have a replay of La Creek's performance in the Tarzino, BP?
Yeah, well, this is it here. And look, she's held up at a crucial stage of the race, isn't she? Because she was 3 back the inside, and she's just trying to work off and just trying to build some momentum into the race. And considering all that, look, she has done a good job to finish into third position because she was held in her tracks on a very wet surface, having to come towards the rail by this stage of the day and still finish into third position, and she's rallied late. But she needs to be that improver again off this, and all the reports are that she has been. And that's the problem that I know that Stephen's talking about there, is just hoping that she doesn't get into that awkward position once again. And if she's ridden like the best horse, I think she's going to be given every opportunity as the favourite in the race to put the Arrowfield away. I also have in the back of my mind that Mustang Valley could be the Dark Destroyer of this race, because can Mustang Valley produce something like Dark Destroyer did there on that occasion and swoop on those horses centre part of the track and get that right track into the race? Because if there is that good pressure up front, and I like the fact that she is drawn out, because it's a very uncomplicated ride now, isn't it, for Vinny? It's just a case of just getting the horse back, getting into a rhythm, and just hoping that there is going to be that pressure up front. It's a Group 1 race, so there should be good speed up front, and then it's tagging the right horse to get into the race. I think if he tags the right horse and builds into the race at the 600 metre mark, she's a big threat, because track conditions is going to suit. How wet's the track going to be? It might even be in her favour even more so by then. They might be coming down the crown of the track by race number 7 if it is a heavy 10 surface. So you start ticking all the right boxes, don't you? And let's have a look at her win here last time to the races, Stephen, in the Merrill Metric Mile, because, as you said, she built into the race. She just went on her lonesome, but Courtney Barnes just said, look, she is the best horse here at the moment because she's in superb form. And she put them away with a fair bit of class, didn't she?
100% BP. You see there a lot of green in terms of to the 600, last 600 in the class rating, just over par fractionally. But it was very arrogant, as you say. She didn't get that card into the race. She was ridden like the best horse, and she delivered. She's got to step up to weight for age, but just on the class rating from the metric mile and where it was placed in terms of her 75 win on Tarzino Day. So the Tarzino, compared to her 75 win, as we mentioned at the top of the show, was 2.2 lengths superior than the Group 1. But she improved that rating by 1 length on that particular race that we're seeing in picture shot there in the metric mile. So she's still improving. I'm not saying she needs to improve a huge amount from what we saw in the metric mile. Probably the only question mark is the weight for age. So she's got to step up in weight. These are just based on raw figures and not weight related in terms of the metric mile and the 75 grade win. But look, at $3.60, in terms of a betting picture around Mustang Valley BP, look, there's some very nice tickets on her in terms of futures betting. And because of that, she's going to be lukewarm in terms of until race day. So we've seen her gone 320, 360. I reckon at some stage on race day, she touches $4. And that's no knock on her chances. I think that's just a reaction that we've had to make here in Petone purely on the liability that stands on Mustang Valley in the futures. Now, we're quite often told just ignore what the futures are telling us when we're framing a final field, but it's hard to put it to one side and forget about it. But the fact of the matter is, Mustang Valley there's some nice tickets on her, a high bet count. As I mentioned, there's $60 at 61s, 300 and 150 at 8s this time last week. So there's some nice tickets, and those individuals don't need to invest on her, and that's why I just believe she's lukewarm at 320. You're seeing her price go to 360, and I believe she touches $4. And then we can reassess her chances in terms of track conditions, how they're playing, in terms of because where she maps and where she's drawn. But I think at some stage, and it may only be very late in proceedings leading up to the race, she becomes hard again. But at this stage, she's only lukewarm.
BP, can you make a case for anyone else down the page, someone who might appreciate the conditions, maybe a demonetisation, a Deerfield maybe?
Yeah, I do like the monetisation. I want to give him another go, because he was almost ridden against what we've normally seen from him. He was more forward in running in that race. He jumped so well. He jumped from barrier number 3, and he was put into a position of outside lead at demonetisation, and you could see that he was not travelling that great at about the 500 metre mark, and he's finished into 8th position. I just wonder, with his barrier draw, do they look to be a bit more neutral with him, as we saw in like a Foxbridge Plate where they got back, let it all unfold in front of them and see if he can get over the top of them. I just want to give him another chance. I think he's at a crazy price, and he's a top 4 prospect. He's a great include for trifectas and first fours demonetisation, and it's easy to drop him because how he ran last time. I mean, he's got to make up many lengths on the horses. He's beaten 10 lengths in the Tarzino, but just going on what's presented, he gets the conditions again to suit. 1,600 metres, no problem for him. So, yeah, I just don't want to get off that demonetisation train just yet. I think there's a lot of horses you can spec in the market. I mean, Helena Baby is a horse. If he can get to that position, like I said beforehand, of being in or near the lead, sitting outside of Deerfield or something around that mark, 1,600 metres, no issue for him. Harlequ's a horse I've got my eye on for the Livermole. If Harleq can run a big race here, well, then he becomes a strong Livermole chance. You've only got to go through his form from last season to sort of line things up. I really like the race. I think the race has good depth through it because you've got a runner like Tiptronic, a 2-time Group 1 winner. Defibrillator's back in the country. Opie Bosson aboard. I guess that he's won a maiden on a heavy surface, which was when he was in this country, and that's the heavy track form reference there and when he was fresh up. But reports are he galloped really strongly at Matamata in between races, so a bit of respect there. So I think overall we've got ourselves a very good Group 1.
Right. If Thad Taylor's at home watching this, he'll be looking at his watch going, what is going on?
Just one horse I do want to mention.
Yes.
Back on Defibrillate, he wins, I loses. I just can't back him until I see him at the races. But respect the stable and the word coming out that he's going very, very well. And just a bit concerned of where he maps. But White Noise just has a similar profile to Dark Destroyer. Probably not A-grade form as what Dark Destroyer had, purely because what he did in Queensland Dark Destroyer. But White Noise wasn't too far off our best 3-year-olds last year. He comes into this race, again, stepping from 75 grade to what he did at Te Rapa and winning to weight for age Group 1. So that's going to be difficult, just purely on that. But it probably needs to find 3 or 4 lengths. But he's got as much upside as any in the race, purely on his numbers and that he's got a small sample size in terms of lightly raced and only having one start as a 4-year-old. So look, I'm not saying he's a winning chance on Saturday, but he's definitely a horse to follow, possibly for the 3rd leg.
This is, Race 7 is the 2nd leg of the late quaddie at Hastings on Saturday, a $75,000 guaranteed late quaddie. And by the way that we've gone through the numbers, it sounds like we're going to have a few in the 2nd leg, BP. But it's time for you to put your money where your mouth is. Who are you backing in the Arrowfield stud plate?
Well, I can't wait for La Creek to get to Australia, and when she finds a good surface, I want to be on her. I hope she runs a super race here and plans all systems go for Australia. But in saying that, I'm going to have something on Mustang Valley, a little bit more than last week maybe. So yeah, I'll have something on Mustang Valley again, and maybe wait for that chance to double dip, because if the horse is lukewarm and pushes out to that $4 quote, well, if you've already got some at the whatever prices were available last week, well then you can double dip again at maybe around that 4.5. So I'll go with Mustang Valley just in front of La Creek, and demonetisation, I'll stick with that horse as a top 4 chance.
Right. Second race we're going to have a look at is the AHD Hawke's Bay Guineas, Group 2 level. And funnily enough, we've got an Opie Bosson Mark Walker runner at the top of the market, Steve.
Yeah, well back commodity, Dynastic. It was a bit soft on race day. There was a bit of trepidation on the heavy track first up, etc. But he got the job done in impressive fashion. $2.70 heads the market. That is the original quote around the favourite for Opie Bosson and Mark Walker. Bestseller at a $3 price. In terms of Dynastic bestseller, Dynastic currently holds 2 times more money than Bestseller, but Bestseller still very hard in that second line and well supported. Pierre, very soft, 650 at a point to 7.5. She's dominant, also a firmer, 10 into 850, the second of the 2 fillies in this race. Sartorio, 26 into 16. Has been identified in the middle market, and best of the rest is Lead Ox, 14 to 18. Notably around Lead Ox, has been well played in all-in/futures betting, just a little bit soft when it comes to final field, 14 out to 18.
BP, Dynastic, top of the market there at $2.70, but it doesn't look like Get It All Its Own Way. Bestseller at $3 has had a wee bit of support.
Yeah, and she's been super, hasn't she, this preparation. Her return at Taupō with how she won that day and then backed it up in the Gold Trail. So she has to take on the boys here, but man, she's in super form, isn't she, in Bestseller. And I'd say that they're all very much looking over their shoulder late to see where Bestseller's coming from, because what she's done in the last couple of starts, the boys here would have to be concerned. Then you've got Dynastic. Now, Dynastic, there was so much trepidation in the marketplace and from those closely associated to the horse about how he would go on a wet track last time to the races. Well, all those questions were answered because he was able to get the job done. And he did show his class. We know how good this horse is from last season. He won the Karaka Million. But there was just that issue of trying to line up his trials on a wet track. Trials to race day is a different beast, and he found a way to win here because Pierre went up and had a good look at him. Pierre had his chance to go past Dynastic, and gee, didn't he find. It was a big first up run though, I guess is the other question mark, if that's what you want to try and find a way to not be on Dynastic. It was a big performance 3 weeks ago. Can he then go again second up on Saturday? That would be my only little thing. And of course the track conditions, I mean, how different are they going to be from day one to where we are on Saturday with rain? If it doesn't rain, as I said beforehand, heavy 8, might be heavy 10, might be heavy 9. So if you want to back Dynastic, I'd just be waiting for Saturday itself just to get the true line on those sort of things. But yeah, he was super, wasn't he, 3 weeks ago, Stephen?
Steve, yeah, what did the numbers tell you?
The numbers were very good. Yep, numbers were very good. It was off a strong tempo. He was 3 wide facing the breeze for the majority until the home straight, and he put a good field away. Saying that, I can't see any horses that finished in behind Dynastic turning the table. So I think if you're looking for a horse to beat Dynastic, and it could be the 2 fillies or a recent maiden winner, they are the ones to identify. I just can't see Pierre turning the tables on Dynastic. I thought Pierre had its chance first, or knowing that Dynastic was first up, on what we say there was trepidation around track conditions, where Pierre had ticked that box at Matamata, winning in impressive fashion in maiden class. He had his chance on day one. He didn't get the job done, and I can't see him turning the tables there, BP.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make there, isn't it? I mean, it was a good run from Pierre, but he had his chance to go past him, didn't he? And I guess if you're trying to line up having a bet on the horse, we're looking around $6.50 is his current price. What about the Wanganui Guineas? What do we do with that form line, Stephen? Because again, the Whanganui Guineas has always been one of those races that's a natural stepping stone towards the Hawke's Bay Guineas for so many years. Of course, the filly won it in She's Dominant, beating home a maiden galloper in the race, and Mr. Mojo Rising, an accidental tourist. How do you line up that form heading into this?
Yeah, look, you're bang on. Historically, it hasn't been the right form lines heading into Hawke's Bay, our feature 3-year-olds, and particularly the Hawke's Bay Guineas. Normally, it's that northern form coming down to the central districts. And I think a reason for that is because naturally Wanganui on that particular day has been rain affected going. So is there something in the track conditions that just may level it out in terms of we're hitting a heavy deck at Hastings? That's what was presented at Wanganui in terms of when She's Dominant performed. So we're, like I say, historically it might not have been the right recipe, but this year might be an exception purely of what we've seen in track conditions in the last 2 to 3 months. But just on her figure, when winning at Wanganui, she needs to find 3 lengths to match Dynastic. And look, she's going to put herself in the race, BP. She's probably either going to lead or sit in the first 2. That's how I map She's Dominant. She's been a late, what you'd say, ingredients into this field, because we didn't actually have her down in futures markets being a filly, but they've decided to chance their arm, run against the boys, and this will get her a good line. Well, this will get the connections a decent line, whether they go down to Christchurch around a filly to take on the 1,000 guineas. But yeah, look, I won't be on She's Dominant, but I respect the little bit of money that's been on her purely down to track conditions and the way she maps.
Another runner that we've taken a wee bit of cash on, it looks like Soterio, BP.
Yeah.
Can you understand why?
Yeah, no, look, the horse was very good first time when winning, and of course if you go back with that race, was the Dynastic race, the El Roca. It was a horse who was able to make up some late ground in that race when finishing into 6th position. Might be one that those that are trying to play into trifectas and first 4s, a little bit of CD flavour with that horse out of the Matthew Eels barn. I think Leadox is an interesting horse, and interesting that you've mentioned Leadox because his gallop with Agon on Great Northern Day, he had exhibition gallop. He looked very good there, and he was a horse that was able to produce a couple of runs at stakes level, or certainly one of them at stakes level anyway, behind Contagious last preparation. Look, niggly barrier draw, first up on a wet surface, they were all red flags, but he's a horse I just want to keep some tabs on as Leadox. Look, overall, I can't get away from the top of the market. I just keep coming back to Dynastic and Bestseller. They are the two horses that have performed supremely so far this season. They both won on day one of the carnival. Can't find too much between them, and maybe it's a case of running the Quinella between both of those runners. Look, I know it sounds a bit boring, the first and second favourite, but just with what they've done so far in the early preparation, they're pretty hard to separate.
Do we have a look at Bestseller in that Gold Trail? Have we got? Yes, we have. Of course, we have.
Yeah, well, this was a win, Paulie, that, you know, look, we saw this at Taupo as well, didn't we, with how she was able to win. And look, it almost looked like she was running off on the bend, wasn't it, at Taupo, with the way that she was sort of smoking into it out wide. And when we got to about this point of the race, you just knew that she was going to draw this horse in, because she's got a very good turn of foot on sort of off ground, and this was a heavy surface for her for the very first time, but likely trained, and look, she got the job done. So a better barrier draw. It'd be interesting to see what they want to do tactically, won't it, Stephen, from the position of barrier number 3?
100% BP. I think that's intriguing. You've got to remember this horse drew a nice alley on day one in the Gold Trail, and she found herself back. I know there was indications that they might try and use barrier 3 and put her in a more handy position to where she was found herself, albeit a small field, when first up at Taupo. But yeah, barrier 3, that is a bit interesting. It gives them options if they jump well, and Sam Spratt can get the filly out of the machine and put herself in a more neutral position than the back third. So yeah, nice little watch in the first 200 to 300 metres around her and where she maps.
Steve, you got to take us through like a bit of a form line here for us.
So what I've done here, Paulie, is I've compared the Gold Trail v the Sir Colin Meads. I think you can get a real good line purely on raw figures, and there wasn't too much in terms of what the weight carried between the Colts and the Geldings and the Sir Colin Meads, and also the Gold Trail. So I think it's a nice form line to compare on, purely because there's roughly around about 60 minutes between these two races being run on day one. So you've got the Sir Colin Meads over 1,200 metres, Dynastic the winner, 117 and change. To the 600, as I mentioned, they went fairly quick, over 4 lengths to the 600, and ran home the last 639.76. In terms of burst class, it was a fraction over par, 0.2 lengths. But then when you're comparing to the Gold Trail Bestseller for the fillies, 118 and change. So roughly a second slower than the boys. To the 600, but they went out a fraction quicker than the boys in terms of figures, 1.2 lengths, a fraction slower than the boys, 1.2 lengths below par, but the last 600, 3.5 lengths below par. But the crucial part when measuring these two races up is verse class. So you see there, they're well below par, the fillies, 4.3 lengths below par. So when you're measuring that up against the boys, the Sir Colin Meads rated 4.1 lengths superior v the Gold Trail. So on that score, that was the main reason why we had Dynastic in terms of that top line / favourite tag. Not to say that Bestseller can overturn those figures. That's just one line you might want to take on when you're having a bet and doing the form. But look, Bestseller's, look, she didn't rate that well at Taupo either. But I think it's just the way she's winning that you've got to respect that and trust the eye. She's getting back and she's demolishing, finishing over the top of horses in a really good fashion. So, look, there's just one line you can take on in terms of working out your form. But on raw figures, Dynastic was clearly superior v Bestseller on day one.
Right, BP, tell us where you're going.
I'll take the fixed Quinella 380s where things sit at the moment for the fixed Quinella between Dynastic and Bestseller. And I want to have something on Leadox. I'm not sure what type of bet I'm going to have yet with Leadox, if it's just a top 4 bet or included in a trifecta or first 4. But I respect his futurity win and what I've seen from him so far with his exhibition gallop and also with how he's trialled up. So, yeah, Leadox, we'll put them there as a bit of a roughie for the race as a top 4 chance.
Right, we've got to it should be the halfway stage of the show, but we're running a wee bit late. But it's time for a minute with me. And this time, I headed to the Cossie Club.
Hi, I'm Kozi Asano. I'm a mechanic in Cambridge. I'm 23 years old, but I have a lot of experience there.
Okay, who has been your biggest influence in racing?
In racing, I don't watch racing, but Yeah, I like car racing instead.
What was the first car you owned?
My first car I owned is Toyota Prius. It's good for Uber.
Toilet paper, over or under?
I do both ways.
Most famous person in your phone contacts?
Muhammad Ali. Nah, it's actually my dad.
Your go-to karaoke song?
I'm Japanese, but surprisingly, I never go to karaoke.
Your favorite NRL team?
NRA, Chiefs.
Favorite junk food?
Taco Bell.
Who should be All Black coach?
Me.
Who has it easier, jockeys or trainers?
Oh, it's a harder one. I'd say jockeys.
Union or league?
Union or
Yeah, are you union or league?
Union.
Favorite cocktail?
12, 15, 14, 11. Margins were half
Espresso
ahead by
martini.
half ahead.
If you were a premier darts player, what would your nickname be?
Cozy.
The club, that's right. Your first celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush.
Yeah,
Like
like a,
who I fall in love.
yeah, that's it.
Emma Watson.
Harry Potter. Which player would you most like to see at the Warriors next season?
Well, I don't follow any player.
That's right. Favorite horse you've ever ridden?
A tissue.
A tissue. Favorite movie?
Harry Potter.
You can invite 3 people to a dinner party. Who are they?
Well, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Voldemort.
I get there's a theme here. The race you'd most like to win?
Japan Cup.
Nice. Horse we should be keeping an eye out for this season?
Every horse.
And can you give us your best 180 shout?
What's that? 180 shout.
Yeah. 180.
180.
Thanks, Gozzy. That's Yep, thanks to Cozzy for having a chat with us. Right, we better move on. And we're going to head to, where is it? Hastings, race 4, which starts at 7 minutes past 2 tomorrow. The Collier's Commercial Hawke's Bay Premier Handicap. It's the open handicap over 1,300 metres. Who we got at the top of the market? Wow, Old Town Road at $3.
Yeah, and just before I go over this market quickly, Paul, that Aegon has come out running today at Te Rapa, so Aegon has come out, so you see naturally a lot of these prices firm from the original quote. Old Town Road, $3.80 into $3, well back commodity. Time's ticking, also well played first up. Albie McGregor and Opie Bosson, 4 into $3.50. Musée Moi, they're a 50-50 about taking on the Group 1 later on in the afternoon, but they've elected just to go back and grade in terms around Musée Moi second up, 4 into $3.80. Tabby Court, 7 into 5. Durham Lad at a $7.50 quote, and Langkawi the Ranky at $18. So overall, they're pretty keen on the point end of the market here, Paul. Old Town Road and Time's ticking 1-2 in betting and 1-2 in terms of volume of money.
BP, you liking the Lisa combo here? Lisa Ladder, Lisa Allpress and Old Town Road?
Look, the horse was impressive, wasn't he, on day number 1 of the carnival? And if he can back up what he did here on this occasion, on a wet surface, no problem, winning at Hawke's Bay, loves the joint. Gee, they're all good factors, aren't they, around Old Town Road? And in a smaller field, yes, it's a 75 up to an open handicap. And just having that a couple of kilos on some dangers in the market, I mean, what's he get, 2.5 on, 1.5 on Time's ticking, 2.5, and yeah, I just feel as though maybe that's going to be enough to see this horse getting the job done. Time's Ticking's a horse fresh up though, can operate. Opie Bosson on a wet surface. You can see why there's some respect in the market, and that's interesting what you said about a Musée Moi, Stephen, because obviously it was not nominated, but it was in your futures market, so no doubt you had a phone call leading towards the Arrowfield suggesting that they were keen to put the horse in that race.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, we got some phone calls roughly about 14 days ago around a Musée Moi, put it in futures, happy to do so, quoted it from memory roughly around about that high teen $21 quote for the Arrowfield. And then they've obviously just thought about it and thought that we'll just go for maybe the original plan to the open class 1300 rather than the weight for age 16. Look, if he's showing ability going further, he'll have his chance at Group 1 level, no doubt, a Musée Moi. But that's just telling you that he's going very, very well. And on a Musée Moi, he was soft first up. We could not write a ticket in the Petone head office around a Musée Moi, and he ran up to betting expectation. He just finished midfield, even though we knew he probably had the ability if he was ready to go. From a stable that quite often have them not too far off the mark first up, but they left a little bit in the tank for a Premier Day, and the money's up. Even though he's not contesting weight for age, they must be more than happy with number 4. Just back on Old Town Road in that race we did watch there. Look, it was in a lower grade race, but he ran an open class figure carrying 59.5 kegs. He drops to 54 kilograms for Saturday's assignment, Old Town Road. I reckon he's the best bet at Hastings. That's my assessment around Old Town Road. He's at a $3 mark. Probably, look, there's not too much fat on the bone in terms of a price. I think he'll be roughly around that $283 price. I think there's enough in the field to hold up that line, but just what he produced under 59.5 kilograms to produce an open class figure, and he did it 3-4 wide facing the breeze and had the audacity and arrogance to kick away in the home straight. There was a few horses closing fractionally in the last furlong or two, but he had all right to just knock up in the last 100. So I've roughly mapped him to be on speed, and with that lightweight, he's the horse to beat, not just for that race, but on the card.
BP, can you looking at anyone else outside of Old Town Road here? Maybe a Tavi Court?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Tavi Court did the job nicely at New Plymouth recently and just got back into some good form, a form that we know and respect from previous seasons. 3 kilos coming off the back is going to be helpful to get the horse down to 53.5 kilograms. I keep looking at what Old Town Road did last time 3 weeks ago, and as I mentioned, track conditions, they're all suitable things for this horse. Gets some crucial weight off, some big chances in the race. So yeah, I'm happy to stick with Old Town Road and be interested to see if it continues to hover around that $3 mark. So yeah, we'll go with Old Town Road.
Can we wrap that up then? Can we, BP? Can we say Old Town Road? That's your best. That's where your money's going in terms of race 4, Hastings?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd be happy, a little bit like Stephen, happy to sort of shop around the $3 and. You know, the horse was so dominant when winning last time to the races. Yes, I know it's up in grade, but yeah, I'm happy to run with it.
Steve, shall we move on to Riccarton?
Yeah, we'll quickly just touch on one of the key races in terms of 1,000, 2,000 guineas ramifications, and it's the 3-year-old event at Riccarton, the Guinness Trial. And it's over 1,400 metres, and it's headed by Cognito, who's made its trip from the north to the south, $2.70. Just lukewarm on Cognito early doors, perfectly suited, the best bat runner, $4.80 into $3.50, perfectly suited. Melbourne Bay, $4.80 quote, that's the original price, should be suited by the 1,400 metres, was doing all its best work late and through the line. Chibano, very impressive in terms of numbers on the synthetic, just has to replicate that on the turf at a $7 price. Diz's Dramatic should be an improver second up, 7 out of turn or a couple of turns to $8. And then best of the rest is Arrowette, also a northerner, bringing down that form line 10 out to 12. But look, overall summary, early doors, perfectly suited, was a real eye catcher a couple of weeks ago on this track, $4.80 into $3.50.
BP?
Yeah, perfectly suited. I mean, she ran all the right figures, didn't she, in the race? The Canterbury Belle, we marked it as our maiden of the week, didn't we, with One Kiss? And I marked it for a maiden of the week purely because there was so many horses in there that you wanted to follow. Now, I know Perfectly Suited's won a race, but it was just one of those horses you wanted to identify as a chance of getting towards the 1,000 guineas. You wanted to be on. Punters have got on. What was it, $4.80 into $3.50. I guess the little twist in the tail here is that Tiako decided to bring another horse down, and that being Cognito, and we'll see a number of horses starting to work their way down to Christchurch to get ready for the 1,000 and 2,000 guineas. And his run in behind Sharp and Smart was very good. So a little bit in limbo here about how to sort of pick which one out of the two, but I'm going to stick with what I saw with Perfectly Suited. I was really taken by how the horse was able to perform in the Canterbury Belle, so I've got her just as my top selection in front of Cognito from the Te Ako barn.
Right. I think it's time that we move on to best bets then. And we'll start with you, BP. What's your best bet for this weekend?
Well, there's one jumping racing day left in the season, and I thought, let's find a maiden hurdle. And we've got one at Woodville. I really like this horse. I think this is a horse to mark down for next season. His name is Greystone. He's performed well on the flat recently, but if you go back to over his most recent jumping assignment, he ran second at Riccarton, and now it was in behind Phelan Foxy, who ran a placing in the Grand National. He actually beat home Kiddo in that race. He's a lovely jumper. He is a beautiful jumper, is Greystone. Sean Phelan takes the ride on him in race number 1. He's a horse I want to be on for Sunday, and I'm really keen to follow him as a jumper for next season.
Right, I guess it's me then, and I'm going to head to the final race on the card at Hastings. And I like the look of the local, the Guy Lowry trained Go Hugo Go, a second first up against Rosie Brahma, and gets a 1 kilo swing in the weights. And just the way that finished off last time, I think the extra 100 metres up to 1300 this time will suit perfectly. So Go Hugo in the race 9 at Hastings Saturday. Steve?
Yeah, look, I'm going to go today, so you've got to be watching this show live. That horse on picture shot, Regazzo, was very impressive on the track that will be playing again today at Te Rapa. Similar track conditions, the son of Tavistock. Look, he displayed ability as a 3-year-old last season when second in a listed Selva behind White Noise, but I loved his first up win. What we're seeing here visually, look, it'll be almost identical conditions. He sat 3 wide without cover on speed, had the audacity to hit the lead at the top of the straight and kick away with an official winning margin of 5.5 lengths. So it was very good on the eye, backed up on the numbers. Speed rating was strong, 3.3 lengths above par, suggests he'll be going up to 65 grade and doing the job. He's currently at a $3 price. Somewhere between $2.50, $3, so he still might be okay price to be shopping at $3 Regazzo, but I can see him post-Christmas, might not get there prior to Christmas, but post-Christmas contesting some of our open class staying events, Regazzo.
Well, you've got a hot hand. You did pick up a winner last week with YOLO. Congratulations on that. And of course, last week we had a boosted odds poll, and we've got another one this week. You can vote on either Dynastic, La Creek, Cognito, or Belle of the Ball. The top 2 vote getters will be boosted by the bookies. You can vote right now. Just head to @TAB Racing on Twitter and vote for the one that you want boosted. And if you leave a comment, you'll go in the draw to win a $100 bonus bet. So I don't know, which one don't you want boosted, Steve?
Oh, gee, it's a tough one. They all look very hard to beat in their respective races. How did we go last week? With the ones that were selected, did they do
Butler?
the job? Butler, yeah, we touched on that, $2.50. So
Yeah.
what was their second horse? Can you remember?
I don't think it got up. That's probably why it's not in my mind at the
Figure
moment.
winner.
Vigor, was it?
Figure winner.
Vigor winner.
Yeah,
It was.
funny race that. Funny race. Anyway.
Yeah, and of course we've got a bonus back blitz this Saturday. It's all races at Hastings, so all 9 races from Hastings, and the first 4 races from Riccarton, Randwick and Flemington. A refund if your runner finishes 2nd, 3rd or 4th, paid as a bonus bet up to $50. Don't forget, no deductions, no surprises. Of course, Aegon coming out.
He wasn't hard in the market, but
What, about $7?
yeah, I think so. So you're talking
So no
roughly around
deductions
about
there?
12-13% there. So, yep.
And of course, we've got a new initiative here at the TAB, an express payout. Now, you can head to the TAB website to check out all the T's and C's, but I think it's something that Brenda Popplewell is very much looking forward to.
Well, yeah, if you can get those funds a little bit quicker in the account, that's all good. So this covers off all fixed odds bets, as you said, Paulie. Fixed odds win, fixed odds place, top 2, top 3, top 4, all the exotics. If you're playing exactas, quinellas, trifectas and first 4s, you're expected you'll get your money a lot quicker, 2 or 3 minutes quicker than what you normally will. And the other saving grace with this, and this is the best factor around the express payout, if your horse wins and then it gets relegated, you're still a winner. And of course, if you're on the horse that gets pushed up, of course you get paid out on that runner as well. So there'll be 2 payouts there on a horse that was to be relegated and the other runner put up. So that is the best thing about this new initiative, express payout.
Right, that's about it. I've let you guys go on far too long today. I'll have the persuader out next time. But thanks for joining us. And if you are having a punt, good luck. And we'll see you again next week on The Leg Up.